All right, everybody, we are here once again for Creativity is the Cure. Today, my special guest is the one and only Ripley Rodriguez. Hey, Ripley.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. So if I understand correctly, you are a filmmaker, drummer, and gamer. Would that be true?
Yes.
Tell everybody, how old are you and where do you currently go to school?
I'm 15 and I'm transferring to Loxa.
So you're going from a charter school to, what, is it a public school with arts? How would you describe it?
Yeah, it's definitely focused on arts. It's public school.
Right, and regarding arts, by the way, we're in Los Angeles here. Loxa, do you know what it stands for?
I want to say it's Los Angeles County High School of the Arts. I'm missing the S.
Well, you were about to start.
School of the Arts.
Oh, School of the Arts. Very good. If I understand correctly, when you go there, you get basic education like anybody 9 through 12, but you can also pick a focus for the arts. And if I remember, what is it? Music, film, what else? Is there visual arts too?
Yeah, there's music, film, dancing, visual arts, theater.
Right.
And
yeah, I think actually have former students that do one of each of those. So what is your focus?
My focus is cinematic arts. I'm going to learn about writing, directing, cinematography, anything film.
Okay, and you don't have to pick your specific thing. You're going to learn a little bit of everything. You don't have to do just screenwriting or just directing, things like that, or just TV or just film.
Nope. I'm open to doing everything, and I will try to do everything that I can do.
That's awesome. And then you probably figure out a specialty by the end and then focus on that.
Yeah.
Great. What and or who inspired you to want to study filmmaking?
I'd say my dad and my mom were definitely a big part of it because my mom...
Tell us what they do.
Yeah, my mom she started off as an actress, but she's a commercial casting director, and my dad is a screenwriter for TV shows. Right now he's working on a show called Once Upon a Time in Aztlan with Mr. Cartoon and George Lopez.
And your dad's a writer?
Yeah.
So you grew up in an environment with people working in the industry, so it was in some ways natural for you to progress into this area, correct?
Yeah, definitely. Anytime I was in my dad's office, I'd be behind him on meetings or while he's writing. And sometimes I'd sit behind my mom and watch her scroll through the videos and headshots, and I'd be like, oh, that's cool.
Right, and I heard that when you were extremely young, you had some experience in commercials. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. My first commercial, because I did commercial acting, was I want to say when I was, I think 8 months old, and I don't think I even auditioned for it. My mom happened to be in the casting studio, and she brought me into one of the rooms to talk to one of her friends while they were still running, and all the babies they brought in were crying, and she was like, here, you want to hold them? And I guess I just didn't cry.
You had a calm demeanor.
Yeah, and then they were like, hey, this baby doesn't cry. Would you be open to him shooting the commercial? But after that, I did I did a couple other commercials. I did one for HP Printers, which is I think the one I remember the most. I want to say I was 3rd or 4th grade. I must have been 7 or 8. I don't know, however old you are in that. And it was really fun. And then I did one for a bank, I think, where I got to dive underwater and the cameraman he swam underneath me with the camera, and it was so cool. And then I was pinned for a Carol Burnett and Amy Poehler show, but actually my friend got it. Sadly, it didn't pick up, though. And then I was on a veil for the sequel to Punky Brewster.
I'm sure there's some people out there that remember that show. Pretty big. What was that? 80s, 90s? Punky Brewster, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, I think it was late 80s or
late 80s, yeah. Well, you're pointing out one thing. The industry you're going into can be pretty unpredictable, right? So you got to have a lot of determination and focus.
Yeah, you got to be open. You got to keep trying and keep trying.
Right. So obviously you grew up in an environment that might have inspired you to get into this, but what about you personally? Why would you want to get into filmmaking? What's the allure? What attracts you to doing that?
I think that filmmaking, TV, video games, I feel like they should be able to change your perspective on something, or if you could write a good story, it should be able to change the way how you feel or open you up to an idea you haven't really thought about. It's conveying a message in a way that, I don't know, you can't really do by just speaking. You can project something to the world. Like I remember I saw, and this is gonna sound off topic, but I saw this video of a guy dressed up in a Max Headroom costume, and he like hijacked the TV, and I think I watched the video with my dad or something, and we were both surprised because he hijacked a TV for like a solid 3 minutes and said nothing. Yeah. Like if you have the power to say something to the world, and you're not going to say anything, like, I don't know. My goal is to be able to say something powerful.
Right. Now, you're saying something interesting. A lot of times when you talk to people in the arts, they're always like, it's all about storytelling. And, to be successful, you have to be a good storyteller. But you're more about the perspective and opening people's minds. So I have a question for you. Do you want to make films or TV shows that give everybody the answers, or are you more one of those people that you're going to end up asking them more questions? Are you going to leave it open-ended for people to interpret it in their own way, or do you want to get your perspective out? What would you say is more important?
I think I'm definitely on the side that wants to ask more questions and let the audience answer them for themselves, because I find that it's more interesting when everyone creates their own ending or creates their own motives. Like Quentin Tarantino, he said in an interview that he hides all these details. Like in Inglourious Bastards, Brad Pitt has rope burns around his neck and stuff.
Right.
And he knows what his perspective on the story is. Like, oh, I know what happened. But he leaves stuff like that so that the audience, every time they watch, they're watching their own separate movie. And then they can go and have their conversation with someone else of what they thought happened. And that way, it's really 100 different movies.
So you almost want people to start a dialogue.
Yeah.
I think that's great. You're making me think of one time David Bowie, they asked him, it was in an interview somewhere, what did a certain song mean? And he goes, you know what? I'm more interested in what somebody else thinks it means than what my original intention was. So would you relate to that?
Yes.
That's great. Do you have a favorite genre of film? And I'm just going to keep including TV because, as you know, we've gone through a time where TV is in many ways more popular than film. So what's your favorite genre?
I'd probably lean to drama, because I feel like the drama is such an open term.
Like a wide.
Yeah, it's very wide. But I'd say I think the movie that makes me think the most, so I have to lean into it, is Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. That you can watch that movie every time and pick up on something new. So I'd say that I'd definitely lean into like psychological horror and thrillers, not like slashers, because I find I get bored by watching them because you kind of know what you're gonna get.
Yeah.
But
so you like things that you watch that you can't predict what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
I think The Shining's a great example of being able to interpret it in different ways. In fact, I don't know if you know, but apparently Stephen King is not fond of that interpretation of his book. Have you
really?
Also read the book?
I have
not. The book is pretty different. And, this is another question I want to ask you. I'm sure you've heard that it's difficult for a director to interpret certain books and translate them to film, because sometimes you have to change a lot. You have to change the way it looks.
Yeah.
You have to change. Sometimes you have to combine characters like Lord of the Rings. There's just too many things, right?
Yeah.
And then think about X-Men,
Yeah.
They changed the outfits just so it would work a little bit better.
It makes me think of Alan Moore, who wrote The Killing Joke and The Watchmen, V for Vendetta, he is totally against anyone making movies or TV shows out of his comics. And I know that Zack Snyder made the Watchmen movie, which is like frame for frame the comic, and he only changed like one thing, but everyone interprets it differently, and I think Alan Moore wants it to be interpreted the way he wants it to be interpreted.
I think that's your right as a director, but as we know, things like Star Wars, sometimes you have an original vision, and the giant company that's in control may disagree and possibly fire you and hire someone else to finish the film.
Definitely.
Let's go back to Stanley Kubrick really quick. What do you like about that film? Is it the acting, the cinematography, the directing, the editing? What really brings you into that?
I mean, I don't want to say everything, but it really is everything. The acting, it's hard to get better than Jack Nicholson in that movie, but also the amount of details in that movie. For instance, Danny, the son, he gets
red rum.
Yeah, he gets lured into that room with the tennis ball, and early on in the movie, we see Jack Nicholson, when he's starting to get bored, throwing the tennis ball against the wall. Yeah. And when Danny comes out all strangled, and later we see him being a little weird around Danny. You can pick, and I didn't know that the first time, because I watched it with my dad, like, I don't know, maybe 2-3 years ago, and we did not pick up on that. And then we went back and went through a bunch of scenes, and we were like,
so that's a good point. I didn't even plan on asking you. My favorite film is Terry Gilliam's Brazil. I've probably watched it 50 times, and every time I watch it, I notice something different. Would you say that about your favorite films?
I would definitely say that. And I think another thing that, because one of my favorite movies is The Whale. Yeah, I'd say that the amount of symbolism too, you can always find some new metaphor or symbolism that also takes a whole new perspective.
I mean, that's a movie I don't want to ruin for anybody who hasn't seen it, because wouldn't you say a lot of it is a lot of surprises and shocking? I mean, I think, I won't say what it is, but right from the get-go, there's a scene that's uncomfortable, and if you're not going to be able to handle that, just forget it with the rest of the movie.
Yeah, it's a
kind
hard
of like
movie.
The Boys, right? You watch the first episode, and you're like, dang, all right.
Yeah.
So with that, what types of films or TV would you hope to make? Around the same lines, or do you have something more radical?
I definitely, I mean, look, my two favorite movies are very different. It's either The Whale, which I said earlier, or Deadpool. So we got either something that's totally, it's comedy, and then something that's pretty hard to watch.
So almost dramedy. I mean, I think I see why you're saying drama. It allows you to go in any direction.
Yeah, you could say what you need to say, but I also feel like drama can start to turn into something else too, like kind of like Hereditary, the Ari Aster movie. You can, it's both a drama but also hardcore thriller, like the terror that family also without.
I think even
anything.
with that one, you need a little comedy relief, because if it's going to be so intense. I remember when I saw that movie, there's a couple little funny scenes, so you almost get a mental breather, right?
Yeah, because you don't want the audience to be completely turned away by what you're doing.
You need to be concerned with the audience's health too. We don't want heart attacks. Yes. We want to take a breather. We're about to scare you again.
You are 100% responsible for what you put out into the world.
Have you made any of your own films yet?
There's one that I've made.
What's the title, by the way?
Deja Vu. It was I made it to get into Loxa, but I think you interviewed him, my friend Otis.
Yes. Otis Carey.
Yeah, yep. He wrote and made a bunch of other movies that I acted in. It was a blast. It was super fun.
Yeah, in fact, some of you and your buddies help each other make their films, right?
Yeah. For my movie to get into Loxa, I brought in two actors that had been in Otis's
Yeah.
movies. And it was
You're kind of like,
super
you guys
fun.
are like Adam Sandler with all his buddies, right? You're gonna
Yeah.
use the same crew, or Ridley Scott. You
Yeah.
always got the same people.
Seth
I did.
Rogen and
I
Danny
saw your
McBride.
film and I liked it. And I was curious, did you do it on iMovie, Premiere? What did you use to edit it?
I used iMovie because it was like the only thing that I had known how to use.
Yeah.
It's so
And it's
so
pretty
simple.
amazing. It's kind of like the garage band of filmmaking.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Let's go way, way back. What is your first memory of using creativity? It might have been when you were 8 months old and then you were learning lines for your commercial, but maybe something different.
I went to a hands-on preschool, so it was less they didn't really teach us like, here are your letters and your numbers. It was like, go outside and paint, go outside and take a photo of the world. Like, they would take us on these trips.
The art of play, as they call it.
They would take us on these like trips to photograph things in the neighborhood, and it was, I don't know, probably around there, because I would be painting, and it probably looks like awful, like I headbutted it with paint.
But it sounds like, you grew up in an environment that was creative, so
Yeah.
maybe you weren't even aware of it. It was just kind of like breathing, right? Would you agree?
Yeah. I remember we walked out into the neighborhood, and everyone was like photographing trash in the street, and I was like, man, that's lame. And we walked down a neighborhood street, and there happened to be a dude standing out there with a pigeon on his arm, and I walked over to the guy, and I was like, I don't know, I must have been 3 or 4, but I was like, what are you doing? He's like, this is my pet pigeon. And I was like, oh, that's so cool. So I talked to him.
Are we talking Hollywood? Because that's pretty normal.
Yeah.
There's like the guy with the goat, the guy
Yeah.
with the rat on his
And
shoulder,
there's a
and
guy-
you met Pigeon Man.
Yeah, there's a guy in our neighborhood with a painted rainbow pig.
Yeah.
But I took a photo of the pigeon, and then we all came over and talked to him, and they were giving out like little kid awards for like best photo, best painting, or whatever at the end of the year, and I got best photo because I took a close up of the pigeon's head.
That's awesome. So we answered this a little bit already, but are your parents creative? But more importantly for this question, do you think that your parents' creative identity was passed on to you at all genetically? So we already talked about the environment, but are you recognizing, because you obviously know your parents well, maybe I got this from my mom, maybe I got this from your dad.
I think
how would you
definitely
compartmentalize or split it up?
Definitely. I'd say musically, I think I definitely got it. My mom's side, music.
Because your mom's like singer and a dancer, right?
Yeah, she was, I think, doing tap dance as a kid. So I definitely got my metronome inside my head from her. And my dad, I mean, he grew up in such a rough environment in Miami during the 80s where it was transitioning, where all he had was him and his friends discussing like who would win the Empire or Star Trek's command deck. Like, so they would go to the movies, and it was such an extreme environment for him that it definitely forced him to think outside the box in terms of distracting himself. And my mom, she grew up in a stricter family where she probably saw 5-10 movies up until she left to go to NYU when she was 17. Yeah, she was strict, but
I'm gonna have to interview her later to find out what those 10 movies were.
She would dress up as Madonna and throw these little shows at family dinners and stuff, but it forced her and her friends to go outside and just record or play in the backyard and, I don't know, create their own games.
Right.
My dad also, when I was younger and he would work out, I would want to come with him, so he'd go on runs and push me in the stroller at the same time. And we'd get there and he's like, do you want to join? And I was, my favorite thing in the world was animals. I could list off any fact about any animal. Like, I would go to the zoo and someone would be like, oh, look at the monkeys. I'm like, they're apes. Okay, like, get it straight. And they'd go over the chimpanzees and they're like, oh, look at those. And I'm like, they're not chimpanzees, they're bonobos. And I get it caught in my head, but my dad got me to exercise with him, I guess, by creating his own workouts and listing them as like animals, or he would take already made exercises and list them as this animal exercise, like squat jumps or kangaroo jumps or something.
That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of just touched on this with your parents, but have you ever used creativity to solve challenges in your life? And before you answer, this is really how I started this podcast, because I had gone through some challenging times, and I realized, I was like, wait a minute. I resolved all these issues by using the same part of my brain that I do to make music or art or, artistic ideas like that. So
I have depression, and it was really, really bad a couple of years back, and obviously I've figured out how to cope with it a lot better, but I think music, writing, movies, it all, I think, saved me, because it, just like I was saying earlier about writing something with meaning, something that says something, I think it was a way to both escape reality, but at the same time leave behind something I wanted to say. It was a way to speak without actually speaking.
That's interesting.
And I think that it...
So you're saying, number one, it was a mental escape, and number two, it started maybe an inner dialogue or back to perspective that helped you communicate?
Yes, definitely.
And with the creative part of your brain, when you went through... I've struggled with depression too. So did it help you resolve anything in your head? Are you ever stuck mentally on something? And then you're like, okay, how am I going to find my way out of this maze?
Yeah, I get very, very caught up in my head. And I think, one of the ways to fix it is exercising, but I kind of create these mental checklists, and I'll be like, at the end of the day, I'm going to watch this movie, and it'll be something completely different from my mindset, so that I could change. If I'm feeling really guilty and awful about myself, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna watch Napoleon Dynamite.
Right.
So something completely different to change my mindset, and it works, because that way I'm not only, and it could just be that I'm doing something that I really love, and that's, I don't know, that's...
there's an adrenaline rush, and you probably feel good about yourself. And do you think that's a connection to what you said earlier about you want to make films that help people gain a new perspective? Because it sounds 100%. Like what you were doing. 100%.
I think there's a lot of ideas that people may think they have a grasp on that they don't. Like, I think a lot of people think and I've talked about this before with my friends. I think a lot of people think depression is being depressed, and they're two completely different things. I think they think depression is like, oh, I'm so sad. That's not really what it is. But stuff like that. I want to bring light to what hasn't really been touched upon, or what people think has been,
You're making me think of that old Christina Ricci movie. Have you seen Prozac Nation?
No.
You want to check that out, because it has to do with what we're talking about. And I can talk about this now because my dad passed away a year ago. I really struggled with depression. In fact, one point I was hospitalized when I was younger, and I remember my dad coming to visit me, and he couldn't understand it. I remember him saying to my mom, why doesn't he just snap out of it? Can you relate to that? Because you get in this deep darkness, and everybody else is like, what's your problem, man?
Yeah, I think people kind of expect you to, toughen up. I'm like, and it's not really what it is. Like, it's not... Like,
they think it's not a legit issue.
Yeah, they kind of assume that you can just snap out of it, and it's not even like, oh, everyone hates me. It's the world's so bad. It's, or at least for me, it's more personal. It's more me, hating on myself.
Right.
And it's very hard for me to be proud of anything that I do. I can't really look back and be like, wow, that was so great. It's always like I could have done better. I could have, I don't know.
Part of that, though, is being a perfectionist, and you may have to deal with that. A lot of people that are intelligent and perfectionists, they're never quite happy with their work, and they keep trying to update it and make it better.
And I think that it, in a way, it can push me to be better, but at the same time, I know, and it's pretty hard, that I need to be easier on myself. But I think it's been hard for some people to understand, like, why can't you just like go get ice cream and be happy?
Right.
And it's not even really a happy, sad thing.
Yeah, totally agreed. Now onto a different topic. You are also a fantastic and unique drummer. Definitely one of the best drummers I've ever heard at a very early age. Who's the most creative musical artist that you enjoy listening to, and why?
I think my music taste is.
I've certainly seen it change over the years.
Yeah, in like 3rd and 4th grade, me and my best friend would have like sleepovers every Friday or whatever, and we would listen to Weird Al the entire time. And I thought that it was
so great to know that you listen to him, because when I was your age, long ago in the 80s, I also listened to him.
I thought it was like so impressive that he would take songs and completely change them.
Parodies.
Yeah, completely, I don't know, transform them into something completely different. And but I'd say definitely that.
So humor is really important in music.
Yeah, right? and I think that music, just like movies, TV, video games, I feel like a good song should also tell a good story.
Absolutely.
And I think I love rock and roll, I think, more than any other genre, but I find that, and I try to listen to the lyrics more now. A lot of the songs that I really like are all telling some sort of story.
Yeah.
I'd say that the two drummers that I'd aspire to be the most like, and I don't even know if it's possible. I think they were kind of, no one could be them, but I like Neil Peart and Steve Gadd.
Those are two great and very different choices.
They are impressive. I think you and me went to see Steve Gadd, and watching him on the double bass drum pedal, and
he plays it very uniquely.
It's crazy. It's also just like a good movie. Completely different perspective on how to play the drums from someone else, and it's crazy.
Both of those guys approach drums differently. Obviously, Neil Peart's not with us anymore, but Steve is still out there playing. One thing you might want to check out, and everybody, if you're into those drummers, when the great Buddy Rich died, Neil Peart put out a tribute album to Buddy, and not only did Neil play some Buddy songs, but Steve Gadd was invited too. So that's a cool thing to check out. What is the current name, the band that you are in right now? What's the name of your band?
We are the Upside.
Right, and what kind of music do you guys play? Is it covers? Is it original?
Yeah, it's covers. We, for the last, I don't know, couple of months, we've all gone around and chosen like one song to play, and then we all master the song and get together and play it.
Very democratic approach. I've seen you go through different bands that didn't always work out. What do you like about playing with these guys?
Everyone's very, very open and very low-key.
No drama?
No drama. The last two bands that I was in, everyone thinks that they're the leader, and I don't think a good band should even have a leader. I think that it should be very collaborative.
I always say if it's not fun, why bother?
Exactly. Everyone had their own idea of what it wanted to be. Like the last one I was in, everyone was like, "Oh, we had one person who wanted super goofy names. We had one person who didn't have any idea at all. I think he was kind of just there for the snacks. And then there was one person who was like, we should be the devil. And I'm like, what?
Right.
No, none of us are none of us are like that, like whatsoever. And then he also tried saying, like, 80 times he's like, oh, I'm the leader. I'm like, oh, what? There's no leader. What?
So what's the instrumentation in your band, and can you give us the names of who's in it other than Ripley Rodriguez on drums?
There's Wes is on bass.
Wes Williams, yeah.
And then Izzy's singing. She's lead. It's insane, the notes that she can hit. And then Faith is on guitar, and she's also crazy. And Wes is... I don't even know how his fingers move that quickly.
Yeah, he's a lot younger than you guys. And I think one reason why you and Wes sound good is he's also a good drummer. So you guys are really tight.
Yeah, he definitely has a metronome in his head. So we'll be looking at each other the whole time so I could keep the bass drum with his notes, and he could keep it with.
Yeah,
it's great.
You guys really lock in, and you recently did a small little but very cool music festival. What was it like to finally play live?
I was really worried, but it came out really, really well. I was insanely worried about the Immigrant song, because we did...
Yeah, that's not an easy one.
We did Sports by...
Yeah, what were the 4 songs you guys did?
We did Sports...
Beach Bunny?
Yeah, Beach Bunny. We did Skater Boy by Avril Lavigne. We did Song 2, which was my choice, by Blur. And then Wes chose the Immigrant song by Led Zeppelin. And I was so...
No pressure.
I was so panicked because
nobody has an easy part in that song.
during the practice, I could not keep up with the bass drum. And then, I don't know, it could just be that we had people watching. When we played up on stage, it was like so quick. And
it feels different though, right? Playing live.
100%.
Not only adrenaline, but it might sound different. Maybe you can't hear yourself.
I feel like when practicing and when practicing, my limbs feel like heavy, like they're weighted. And then when I'm playing, everything feels like a lot looser. And I don't know, that could just be me, because I know a lot of people have stage fright, but I think it's the need to, I don't know, perform your best in front of everyone watching, because there's an amount of pressure.
Well, you had a lot of people there that knew you in the audience, so it's one thing to play in front of strangers, right?
Yeah, there was a good mix, but I definitely felt supported, and everyone else was great. Izzy sang really well. Faith, I don't think she missed.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how crazy it is to watch Wes. His fingers are I don't even know. It's how quickly he can hit the notes.
Yeah, you guys are all great. All right, another topic. You are an avid gamer. Yeah. How did you get into playing video games?
I mean, I don't know if this really counts, but when I was younger and we'd go out to dinner with our family friends and I'd get bored, my dad would hand me his phone and let me play Angry Birds. and it was a transformative experience, because I went from being, I knew every fact on animals, just like I said earlier, and it all went away when I started playing Angry Birds, because my focus was Angry Birds. So my mom would be like, "Dad, tell him a fact," and I'm like, "Birds hate pigs." And then, but I think the first actual game I played, because my dad was...
So you started on the phone. What, did your dad have an iPhone with the app Angry Birds?
Yeah, but I'd say the first big console game I ever played was...
Yeah, what did you guys have? What console?
We were PlayStation people all the way, but my dad's been a gamer since... I don't know.
It's very serious.
Forever. He's been playing them since the 80s when it was arcade games like Pac-Man and...
By the way, his dad is so serious about games. If you go into their house, it's like there's a doorway that looks like it's on a ship.
Yeah.
And then you go into there and you're in another world.
But my first game that I played, and it's also one of the most creative games I've ever played, was Ratchet and Clank on the PS4. I know that they had made...
What's that? I'm not familiar with that game. What's that about?
It's like in space, and there's all these planets. It's like its whole own world. Kind of Star Warsy. I don't know. It's like there's a character that looks like a fox, and he meets this little robot named Clank, and I don't know, their lives
it's
change
like
and they bond
storytelling,
together.
right? Like you were saying with everything else you like, there's a good story.
Yeah, single player. And then I'd say, and I think I told you about it, the first like rated M game I played was Shadow of War, the Lord of the Rings, because I was obsessed with Pirates of the Caribbean and Lord of the Rings when I was younger. I think we were doing a
normally when I do drum lessons, I'm like, what do you want to learn? And a kid will say like Led Zeppelin or Imagine Dragons, and he's like, can we do the theme song to Pirates of the Caribbean? I was like, you sure?
Yeah. But yeah, Ratchet and Clank and Angry Birds kicked it off.
That's great. What's a couple games that you're currently into?
I mean, my favorite games are...
What's the one that was like a dystopian type of thing that had the big band music? I remember you were into Anything Goes for a while.
Oh, yeah. Is Fallout.
Fallout, yeah. Of course, everybody knows that from TV now. Ripley was way ahead of the game.
I'm wearing a Vault Boy t-shirt, but my dad played the first one on like his MacBook in like 1992, and he's been playing them ever since. So I was raised on the radio station music, 'cause my dad got a disc of all the radio stations, and then I got so excited when I got to play it. It's such a open, bleak, creative world. But I'd say the games that inspire me the most, because I'm definitely open to writing for video games too, because I think
that's important. There's great writers and voiceover artists. A lot of people don't think about that.
I feel like the industry has also changed in terms of it started to move from film to TV and video games, and I think a good video game should have the same effect that a good movie or TV show should have.
Absolutely.
Especially you're spending more time on it, but you're also in the place of the character. Like you've been, I don't know, creating and working up your character for sometimes 18 hours, sometimes 100 hours.
You're really building your own character. You're creating with the people who made the game. Yeah,
you're in it. And
very interactive.
I'd say the game series that inspire me the most in that case are, I'm a big Red Dead Redemption fan.
Yes.
I cried at the end of that game. It was crazy. And then I'm a big God of War and The Last of Us fan. Those three series are my favorites, and I think in all of them, at the end, I just bawling.
Yeah, emotional experience for you. Now I got to ask you, with two of them that you mentioned, Last of Us and Fallout, how do you think those translated to film and TV? I mean, I'm saying film because it's such an epic TV show. I feel like I'm watching a film.
I mean, I loved both the Last of Us TV show and the Fallout TV show. I think...
Did they do a good job translating what you liked about the games?
I'd say the Last of Us TV show is like episode... It's basically it's identical to the game. It's the exact same story as the first one. And I feel the things that they changed, like in one of the episodes, without saying much, there's this giant scene with all the clickers, their version of the zombies.
Yeah.
And that wasn't in the game, but it was so crazy. The stuff that they changed in the TV show was, I'd say, better. And I think in the Fallout TV show, the Fallout TV show is canon to the games, because you could make it an anthology. You could do whatever you want in such an open world. It was really cool because they answered questions that were kind of left open in the games and connected really well. So you have one that kind of does what Zack Snyder did with The Watchmen to Alan Moore's comic, and then you have the other, which is you could come to it without playing the games and learn everything, or even better, you can come to it from the games and
so you can go either way.
Either way, yeah, and it works amazing. I have so many friends who didn't even know that the games existed, who watched the TV show, and now it's their favorite.
What's the most creative game that you've ever played? It doesn't have to be your favorite now, but the one that when you're watching it, when things occur, you're like, what?
I could be biased because it's it was my first game, but I'd say Ratchet and Clank is definitely one of the more creative games I've played, just because I don't know, it's like space, but you get all these really goofy weapons where like one of them is I think called the Rhino, and it's like hidden. You have to collect all these cards throughout the game to unlock it, and I only unlocked it in the second one. I couldn't figure out where the last card was in the first, but it plays like the American national anthem while blasting like infinite rockets. I don't know. I don't even know. And all the species and the names.
Overwhelming in a good way.
Yeah, it's a positive game. And then there's, I like, I don't know whether this really counts, and I don't know if they're the most creative, but I definitely like them a lot with all the Lego games.
Yeah, yeah. Your generation for sure.
A lot of them, like they did Lego The Force Awakens, where they
the shorts too. Yeah,
yeah. They like Legofied the movies, but they would change what was like violent into.
Yeah, you're like, making me think of. I mean, you know, I've been a music teacher for about 11 years. When I was teaching elementary school, I always loved when kids were learning to count. Have you seen the one of Darth Vader and Luke when they're learning to count to 10?
No.
That's a great one. I'll have to send you. It's pretty good. I think you can just search on Google or YouTube Darth Vader counting 10 Lego, and it's just awesome. So do you think you might someday combine your musical, cinematic, and gamer talents into a project? I mean, I think it was Steven Spielberg and George Lucas that said many, a couple decades ago that they think this is the way the industry's going. Pretty soon, it's going to be no difference between TV, film, and games. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree, and I would also say that they should all be able to go hand in hand.
Might be one
perfectly.
Product someday, right?
Exactly. Like I know that Star Wars has done it where they have the movies, and look, not all of them are winners, but they have the movies. They have a bunch of TV shows, and then they have video games.
Universe, like everybody's doing now, right?
Exactly, and they're all canon, and they all work really well together. And I would hope that I'd be able to connect all of them, put all of my talents in. Because,
well, think about this. Would you ever consider, maybe after you're done with high school and learning about film, combining writing, directing, designing, and actually do the soundtrack for your own game?
I mean,
you'd have to have a team of people, but would you like to oversee that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, be the showrunner of a game. That would be so cool. I would love to do that.
By the way, before I forget, make sure you listen to the episode with my buddy Victor Yaird, because do you know he just did a puppet video with Weird Al? It's about to come out.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch that.
All right. What video game has the best music in your opinion? I gotta say, I'm not really a gamer. I can only mention a couple of games I like, but my younger son, Caleb, he's actually a video game designer. And I remember when my kids were younger, I was like, oh my God, I couldn't take it how there was like a soundtrack was two measures over and over and over.
Yeah.
And then after a while, the music started, what is it, The Witcher? That was the first one that I was like, what is this music?
No, it's not the Mario theme on repeat. Yeah.
I know. So what do you think? Back to the question. Who's got the best music?
Well, I know that they've also been polling TV show and movie creators to do the music for games. Like I know Bear McCreary did The Walking Dead music, and then he did, I think, the last 2 or 3 God of War games.
Well, what was the one we brought up with the big band music?
Fallout.
Yeah, Fallout, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember for a while that actually got you into jazz music.
Yeah.
That I'd never heard of before, as somebody being inspired to play jazz because of a video game. That's pretty cool.
I learned to use brushes. I'd say the best video game music also has to be from my 3 favorite game series, and they're all like completely different, but the 2 newest God of War games, the music adds so much emotion to the scenes that I don't know. I think it would be hard to feel the full emotional spectrum that you're meant to feel without it. Same with Red Dead Redemption and The Last of Us. The music is as important and as needed as the acting, the gameplay. It's helpful. And
yeah, so I think you're saying it's kind of like the incidental music to a movie, right? Where would Star Wars be without John Williams?
Exactly. It would not be the same, and it wouldn't be the same for the worse.
Yeah. We always like to get toward the end of the interviews with a couple quotes. So I'm going to read 2 quotes, and then I'm going to ask you how are they related to your own creativity. So first one is by the artist Pablo Picasso. He said, "Learn the rules like a pro so you can break them like an artist." What do you think about that?
I think that it's really, I think that it's true, because you got to be able, and it's like I was talking about earlier about perspective, you got to be able to learn the majority of the perspective, or look at the majority's perspective, look at everyone else's perspective, and then create your own, then kind of break it to your will to add another meaning to it.
Especially like you said, if you want to be surprised by something.
Yeah, there was this quote that Jordan Peele said that I think kind of goes with it. He said, "If you can predict where an audience thinks it's going to go, you can use it against them, and they'll love you for it." And I think that's smart, because if you learn the cliches and you learn what the audience is used to, you can bend that to your will and surprise them in a way that a normal cliche.
Yeah, no, he made the movie Nope, right?
Yeah, Nope.
That's my favorite one that he
Out.
did. That is one of the coolest sci-fi movies I've ever seen.
Yeah.
The balloon type of thing in the sky.
Yeah.
The whole movie, I was
the
like,
cloud doesn't move.
What? You didn't even know what you're looking at. That's what I loved. Yeah. All right, second quote. Now, this is funny because you brought up Stanley Kubrick, and I did not know you were going to. Stanley Kubrick said, "A film is, or should be, more like music than fiction. It should be a progression of moods and feelings, the theme, what's behind the emotion, the meaning, all that comes later."
I agree. I also feel like the structure of most music and most songs goes very hand in hand with movies, because though movies can be an hour and a half to 3 hours long, and a song could be 2 minutes to 8 minutes if you're going long. We
go back to the 70s with progressive music,
Yeah,
like a whole side of a record.
There's the chorus, which there's always the opening, which is the opening to a movie. There's the chorus, which I feel like is kind of the what's the word?
Everybody sings along.
Yeah, everyone sings along, and it's the kind of same vibe through that stays throughout the song. Then you have the bridge, which I guess you could say is when the problem comes in the movie.
The unexpected part.
And then the chorus comes back, where it's the same message, and just like movies, TVs, video games, and songs, the best always have a strong story and always have something to say, or make you think you know what it's saying, make you come up with your own idea, perspective.
I think that's great how you're comparing it to song structure. I never thought of that. I've been recently watching Masterclass. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
And the one on Danny Elfman talking about how he would come up with one basic melodic theme, but think of lots of different ways to play it. Sad, happy, fearful, and intersperse that through the whole orchestration.
Yeah.
Right. I have a theme coming in and out. That's great. All right. Last 2 questions. You and I always talk about Star Wars. Which is your favorite movie, and which is your favorite TV show, and why? And I know this is hard. So next time I talk to you, you can change your mind.
Yeah.
So no pressure.
My favorite movie, I'd say, is Empire Strikes Back. But
very common answer.
I'd say
enough.
Out of the prequels, which the ideas of them are cool, but I don't know, the script
execution.
It's robotic. But Revenge of the Sith is, I'd say, easy second, just because I love Darth Vader.
I think one thing people need to keep in mind, because you're younger, all due respect, I completely understand you about the prequels, but when they came out, it was so ahead of its time.
No, yeah.
Technically, and I know that a lot of people are like, when I watch it now, it looks like a video game, right?
No,
But yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Revenge of the Sith.
I watched them all like 5 times.
Yes.
They're never not entertaining. But my favorite TV show, how many have they made? They
Still going.
I like. Oh, are we including animated too? Because I forgot that animated.
We do have the C-3PO, R2-D2, the Saturday morning cartoon. We do have the Christmas special. I wouldn't be surprised if you.
Are we counting the Ewok movies as Star Wars movies?
And strangely, ironically, I have them all on DVD. Yeah.
My favorite TV show is, I don't know. I feel like it's hit or miss. Is that 5th season of the Clone Wars with Darth Maul.
So you like the animated, yeah?
I like all the stuff with Darth Maul. I'm gonna be honest, I did not like that they even made the Bad Batch. It was a struggle to get through the first season.
Not a fan, yeah.
No,
Did you like the? Oh, I don't want to ruin that. Okay, never mind.
And I also like the Mandalorian, though I didn't finish the 3rd season. Not because I didn't like it, I just didn't get around to it.
Yeah. What did you think of I don't know if you're aware of this, but the soundtrack on Mandalorian is actually done by a guy named Ludwig Göransson.
Oh, yeah,
They're letting some younger people take over the music because obviously the great John Williams is in his 90s.
Well, I think he did a great job. And also, didn't he won a bunch of, I thought he won an Oscar or 2 because I think he did Black Panther.
He also plays the instruments for Childish Gambino.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's an incredible musician. There's a great video I always show my students of him doing the theme to The Mandalorian, and I think he's on bass, recorder, drums, guitar.
I also like that the music in The Mandalorian isn't at all what any of the other Star Wars things.
Yeah.
Like they have their own.
He has his own voice, you're right.
Their own vibe, Tatooine culture. It gives off the vibes of the cantina and the Jawas all together. I thought the music in The Mandalorian was probably the best since the original trilogy.
Yeah, I would probably agree on that. Okay, let's do one last question because I just thought of it. If someone hired you to make a Star Wars TV show, what would you like to write about? What would you like to be about? Because I know you know the characters.
Easily Ewok Hunt. I would go a much darker turn like Battlefront 2. Go into, and I was talking
to my dad about it. Did you say Ewok Hunt?
Ewok.
What are they hunting for?
It's the Predator with Ewoks hunting the last stormtroopers that didn't make it off of Endor when the Death Star exploded and the stormtroopers are stuck on Endor and got to escape. And
would it
Ewoks
include
a
little bit of Yub Nub?
Yeah, there'd definitely be some creepy war chants.
Awesome. All right, Ripley Rodriguez. Thanks very much. Let's do this again soon.
Thank you for having me.
All right, see you, buddy.
Bye.